You're watching This Is a Point here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation at pace on what is headlining the front page of The Star this morning. How KQ lost 2 billion shillings in baggage fraud. As a result of incorrect billing, the airline lost about 2.2 billion shillings in 6 months. KQ does not have a centralized system that integrates all the excess baggage information. Remember, this doggedly follows also the release of the report where they are actually they recorded high popping figures as far as losses are concerned. I will show you that much later in the course of the program. And this also was what was headlining the front page of the Star over the weekend as well. We have Kinoti probing Kenya Airways. DCI wants to know how and why the airline suffered huge losses when Titus Naikuni was CEO. You know what is ongoing as far as also the KQ, and JKA round, or the deal that was actually put forward. That is JKA was to be, or that is Kenya Airways wanted actually to take over JKA. That is the Kenya Airports Authority, remember the saga. But we can tell us more on this as well and open up what is happening as far as KQ is concerned. Is it really going down the tube? Can we salvage this particular carrier? Also, what is being proposed by the East African nations as well? Do you think that is the prime solution that can help our airlines as well? Prof, let's just begin with you.
Well, KQ is a big issue. And when I chaired the committee inquiring into Kenya Airways and its problems, most of the issues that you see here were actually in our report. Mm-hmm. And we came to a conclusion. Let me come to the conclusion first. That one, unless Kenya Airways retraces its steps to where Naikuni and Mbugua was the financial director, initiated this Mawingo project. Mawingo was an expansion project for KQ to buy new planes and by maybe 2022 be the leading carrier in Eastern Africa. At that point in time, they were just a little bit ahead of Ethiopia. Okay? But what happened with Mawingo is that it went awry with under deals and corruptions and so on. There's a story here where KQ decided to buy Boeing aircraft from KLM, their partner, at a price which was disfavorable to Kenya Airways, and then sell them later at a discount, which again disfavorable to Kenya Airways. We looked into that and we said, well, this was foolish unless somebody was deliberately trying to defraud the airline and make money. So that was one. But if you look at the page 5 of the Star,
Today's Star,
the history of Kenya Airways.
Today's Star.
Mm-hmm. Look at the history from 1977 to 2012. It's very interesting that the history is very positive from 1977 until 2011. In 2011, it says KQ was profitable, declared 5 billion shillings profit, and was in a solid financial state. 2012, profits declined to shillings 2 billion. So you ask yourself, what happened between 2011 to 2012 for an airline which had been on the rise from 1977 when it was created to 2011, where it made very good profits by East African standards. I think it made better profit than even Ethiopian Airlines then. What happened in that 1 year? In that 1 year, all the trials and tribulations of Kenya Airways started because Naikuni and his lot had started the Mawingo expansion project. Mm-hmm. We tried to inquire in the Mawingo expansion project and the acquisition of aircraft from Kenya Airways. And as a committee, we didn't have neither the resources nor the time to go deeply into this. But one thing we managed to find out was that all the companies that were set up as special purpose vehicles to buy aircraft from Boeing, Dreamliner and so on, were all domiciled in Cayman Islands and Jazz Island and all those people. And when we asked for their owners, what we got back documents were lawyers with British names who were managing this thing for somebody else. We could never go behind the special purpose vehicles to find out what was behind the pricing of craft bought by Kenya Airways from Boeing and so on, and the ones they were selling, and some they were bought from KLM was standing right here on the airport, not being used. The logic behind this we could not penetrate.
Yes.
So we actually proposed that there should be a special forensic audit of Kenya Airways to reveal the truth. Fortunately, Deloitte and Touche then came in, and the result of Deloitte and Touche's work is what we are now seeing here. What should we do? I think what we should have done is what we said then, although we're not capable of saying so. From the time of Naikuni onwards, facts must come out. And like we have an institution here called the Assets Recovery Authority.
Yes.
The Assets Recovery Authority should recover all those assets that were stolen from Kenya Airways through these deals, so that the debt that Kenya Airways have gone into through these deals is actually sorted out, so that Kenya Airways can start on after sorting out that mess. That's one. Very difficult to do. But the second thing is what Michael Joseph and the CEO of Kenya Airways, whose name is rather difficult for me to pronounce, what they were trying to do was very sensible. They were not trying to take over Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. They wanted a joint venture with Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to reduce the cost for running Kenya Airways, because then in that joint venture, they would not have to pay high parking fees like others do. They would use JK as a hub for Kenya Airways, just like Ethiopian Airlines uses Bole International Airport and Emirates uses Dubai International Airport and so on. They were not going to take it over. This is the misunderstanding that has been in the press, which should be clarified. It's going to be a joint venture between...
It was
Kenya.
a joint venture, not to take over. Okay.
Now, the genuine people are asking, okay, you are bankrupt, Kenya Airways, to be frank. What are you bringing in this joint venture? Kenya Airways, well, okay, we have a shareholder called the Kenya government. They will take care of that and will come in. Then the other say, no, don't use our taxpayers again to go into that one. Okay. But then Parliament has gone around and said the same government, which they didn't want to go into a joint venture, should now nationalize Kenya Airways. If you nationalize it, you have to recapitalize it. If you recapitalize it, the money must come from somewhere, from the treasury. So we should be very clear what argument that we are making. Why are we opposed to joint venture? One, because you don't want the government to put in money. Okay. Why are you accepting a nationalization? Because we want the government to put in money. Let's be clear. If you're going to save Kenya Airways, there must be very good arithmetic, very good economics to do it. Don't just say one without thinking of the other and what it means to you.
Let's hear from Mohammed Manyora. Since this, we can see it's a mayday call for KQ. Can we salvage it? A lot of issues. Nationalization has been put on the table. We have also the Open Sky Agreement that the African Union was proposing as well within 23 countries. It seems that also has never really flown.
What can we say on this desk, on this bench, that has not been said? Kenya Airways is just like any other project in this country.
But this has not been said.
What has not been said?
This has not been said. This has not been said. Did all this begin during the tenure of Titus Naikuni?
Because what is he probing? Let me tell you this.
Yes.
First, when you tick the boxes of what a good airline should be, in terms of how you acquire your planes, whether through leasing or buying, you can't tick the KQ box. It remains, or you put there next. When you talk about how you treat your customers, how you charge them, when you talk about how you treat your workers or the workforce, the box is not ticked. You talk about how do you get your fuel. You remember there's a way they do it. Kenya Airways did the opposite, incurring losses in hundreds of millions, if not billions of shillings. If you talk about selection of routes and the partnership with KLM and others, everything about Kenya Airways was done in the wrong way. You couldn't tick a single box, including a ridiculous thing the president mentioned, that they were buying these buses that ferry passengers, across the airport. Was it 100 million? And Uhuru Kenyatta said, give me 10 million, I'll give you a bus. Something like that. I can't remember the figures. It was ridiculous, the figures. So everything about Kenya Airways is wrong. And I want to disagree with Professor Nyong'o that it is Titus Naikuni. You cannot engage in that kind of theft. Let me just call it theft. without the backing of strong people behind you. And that explains why Kinoti may not go far. Because, look here, there's a limit to how much Alice as an individual can steal in a state corporation. You know that Masai Mara thing, that lady in problems, vice chancellor. Yes, that kind of money you can steal, 190 million. But KQ is about tens, if not hundreds of billions. Naikuni can't steal that money without support.
No, we're not saying yes. We're saying, did this actually begin during his tenure, this particular stealing?
Yes, now,
of KQ?
You see, let me tell you what happens in this country. The people who are never satisfied with money, the people who want billions upon billions, which they will live in this world when they die, they are always coming up with new projects. Yes. They are always scheming how to make money. Yeah. You know, it was land, it moved to contracts, it moved to roads. Now we know the cost of roads, they have moved to dams. So Kenya Airways was a project at that time that, oh, tunapeleka pesa, tufanye mawingo. Then Titus Naikuni was a person they could talk with and eat with. It can't be Titus, not Titus, what do you call him? Titus Naikuni. Yeah. It can't be him. This is a scheme. This is an economic mafia in this country. And therefore Kinoti cannot penetrate the mafia in this country. He's just wasting his time. Let him try a bit. I like Kinoti and this other guy to call him Haji for scaring a few people. Kamata Friday. But it's not that they will achieve anything. They will never arrest anybody, put him in. They will never jail anybody. Yeah. But we like scaring a bit. People now, people are scared. You know, it's working. I like it. Let them go on. So this
is just scaremongering.
But they will not get anything from there.
You like with the aspersion that is casting on this?
If we were to analyze the success or failures of Kinoti and Haji, it's too early to make a finding or draw a conclusion. Because most of the cases that they have taken to court are pending. Maybe once the verdict is issued by the courts, then we can pass judgment. But I think really you can see that for once there's a lot of faith in those two gentlemen. When you hear the DCI has moved in, you'll find Kenyans will say at least there is hope. Something is happening. And I think on this one, Debal, it feels nice. Let me tell you, when you board KQ like you're leaving France to Nairobi and you are told welcome to KQ, the pride of Africa, the feeling, you feel nice, you feel good. And you feel at home, I always say, if I'm coming from Europe, I'd rather take KQ because once you enter there, you feel like I'm already in Kenya. Yes. The greeting. So really, this is, an investment that we should not let to go down. We really must do all that we can do to save KQ. Because let me tell you, if you allow this airline to go down, you will find yourself in a situation where you'll be flying from London to Entebbe, then you are thrown to Nairobi. Because that's the custom is that the airline must fly to their home country first, take the owners home first, and then distribute passengers to the other countries. And we must take note that aviation is not a simple business. It's risky and it's complex. Even if you go to Europe, you'll be surprised. British Airways is going through very difficult financial times. It's making losses. So let's not just pick out a KQ and say this is the only airline in the world making losses. Go to Australia. The national airline is in serious financial trouble.
Yeah, but we can try and probe.
So
don't just give this trot excuse that all over the world.
That's the much I can say about it.
But is it the market forces which is making a KQ really be where it is? That is the question.
I was going to the second ambit. Now, the other one, Debal. We have serious crooks. I think people who should not even be allowed to work in that airline. Crooks. I mean, you can imagine a situation where people are trying to make business through some fraudulent ways of checking in luggage of people who are not even traveling. I mean, can you imagine somebody who is supposed to be, a custodian of safe travel, allows Professor Nyong'o to be checked in. They realize Professor Nyong'o does not have any luggage. Then they say now in the next trip, they book people's luggage there and say this one was left behind to make money. And there was a rumor. I know it was never confirmed. But you remember the case of Douala, the KQ that went down. There was a rumor that some check-in agents may have allowed extra luggage, you know, into the plane, and that's why it went down. And if you read the report, you know, Douala is one of the stations where that crooked business is taking place. So me, I want to welcome with open hands the initiative by the DCI.
Yeah, exactly.
Let him go to KQ, let him look for these crooks. And Manyora, we don't care about them big fish or small fish. Even if you are the guy at the counter and you are doing this to our national airline, action should be taken. I think we need to see heads rolling, and me, I'm in full support of this initiative by the DCI, and I hope DPP will also step in. Please, let's not see, you know, our own people, Kenyans who are supposed to be patriotic, are the ones scheming the downfall of Kenya Airways. It is really sad. It's a tragedy.
All right, Isaac.
Yes, I think first and foremost is just to say that I want to concur with the views about the pride of Africa. I mean, this is one thing that you're always, you know, happy to get into KQ and hear music in Kiswahili and all of that. But before I come to that, I just want also to generally condemn the issue of Ethiopian Airlines, because they have been mistreating disabled people. They forced one Harun Hassan not to embark on a trip to US, and then later on told him that he should pull down his complaints in exchange of a business class. And it's easily a ticket, and he's not the only one. Many disabled people have been told to remove their calipers and all of that. But now coming to, and by the way, we will do an inquiry about that in Parliament. Coming to the issue of KQ, I mean, if you look at Lee Kuan Yew and the way he started his Singapore Airlines, you can see the vision of a country. There has been rumors that in 2012, Naikuni was forced to get money for campaigns. So the downward trajectory may be explained that way, because soon after he was appointed as the chairman of Nyumba Kumi. So I think he was rewarded for whatever, you know, compromise he made, and for being in Nyumba Kumi, to take care of the security at the local level, maybe because of the fear of what had been done. But generally, KQ, I am a Fly Blue member. In fact, a proud platinum member. And every time I want to book a KQ plane so that I can get more miles. But to be very honest, the tickets are overpriced. I was very surprised sometime I was traveling to Europe. A ticket for KQ was nearly double the price of the other airlines. I mean, how do you justify that? If you look at even Parliament, you know, the kind of, because we have to first use KQ, you know, to travel. But when you look at the cost, I mean, it's totally unacceptable. Sometimes you find, like there was a time I had a headache in flight, they didn't even have some simple thing like Panadol. And yet, these are national airline. I mean, you ask for things, that some seats are even broken, you know, like, just say the truth. These airline, the partnership with KLM needs to be investigated. I mean, we cannot continue getting cramps and suffering inferiority complex by buying old planes, because then Kenya is a dumping ground for the Dutch. Seriously? How is it that sometimes we get such roadies? Is it that there are backroom negotiations where people like Naikuni and others are given kickbacks and they sell our birthright, like the way Esau in the Bible did? Because you see this consistency, you know, around how things are done. And I remember I was at an international forum where the Irish president, I don't know whether he still is, he was an elderly man who is a very good speaker. He was talking about the international division of labor, so that then Africa's role is to get the crumbs, to get the waste and what have you. But also, the disagreement with KAA is predicated, Debal, on the fact that we have 18 airports in this country. And those 18 airports, JKI gives 90% of the revenue. So for KAA, when they were refusing, it was because of the fact that this is actually where they make their money. And if you look at the loan of the CBA, and that also ties down to what Professor Nyong'o has said, Governor, about the ownership of the planes and how they were overpriced. So you can see now, because some people also wanted now to be able to service their loans, you see? So the whole issue about ownership, I mean, who owns this? I mean, is it actually true that KQ only has, is it 3 planes that it owns directly, you know? So there needs to be proper investigation, and I think also Kenyans also deserve to know exactly to what extent who are the owners of these companies. Because by the end of the day, we could be talking about KQ being our national pride, but in actual sense, maybe it's just a name.
All right, Alice Ohome.
Dibala, I'm happy that there is something happening in terms of DCI moving into probe. But you know, and actually his work should be very easy, because from the trajectory that you have shown there, you know, there is a specific period, and it's a short period, where the problem started. And he should start from there. And I don't want to talk about,
yes.
and it can't be about one person called Naikuni. It is a whole web, another web. It's not even a small crime. These are serious. You know, how do you start? Aris Wahome has no capacity of stealing 1 billion shillings or even any money. These kind of things are the movers, the shakers, and the movers of this country know what is happening there. And clearly, if we lose KQ, I think Uhuru Kenyatta has a responsibility to ensure that this country does not lose this airline, because it would be such a bad legacy for his government if we were to go that route. And I really don't support the question of nationalization of this airline.
Yes.
Because you will find that in that process, there will be another lacuna that will bring another big loss in terms of changing of, you know, the shares, the what. There are Kenyans who bought KQ shares when KQ was really flying. To date, they have never received anything. Public, the Kenyan public are still waiting to actually get bonus from this trade. And therefore, I would think that as a country, we need to first make it profitable. We need to sort out the mess, the problem that is bringing down KQ, remove the cartels. And it is possible to do that. I think we are in an era where we are now agreeing we must turn back and ensure that all the loopholes of where the losses are occurring are actually sealed and rooted out. So for me, I think this is a question of the buck must stop at the highest office, because this is not a small business. The pride of Africa. And many times I have personally agonized and paid, like Maura says, much more for my flight, even when it is personal, not necessarily through parliament. Personally, I have secured air tickets, knowing that I could go to Emirates, maybe get better service, but I still want to promote my own airline. And therefore, Kenyans have made sacrifices. And for us to even receive poor service because somebody is either eating or is bringing in flights, you know, the aeroplanes is another big issue there. You know, the business around KQ is where the problem is. It's not now that you want the government to take over losses. Who has taken the money from KQ? Okay. Who has taken the money? That's really the question. And can we go for it? Okay. Who is the owner of the airlines? The losses that we are incurring, can we invest as a country and buy our own airlines instead of partnering with KLM? And then when you look at the deal, there is really no profit at all. Okay. And the period that we have ran KQ as a joint venture with the, partnership with the KLM should now be able to tell us, was it worth it or was it not worth it? We have lessons that we have learned. Yeah. And therefore, I think that as a country, I believe, and you know the biggest beneficiary of any loss, any removal of KQ, any failure of our airline, shutdown will be a country in Africa. And it will have triple effects in terms of business, because of course, you know, the travel convenience also is followed by investment. You don't want to come to Kenya, then, you know, go to Addis Ababa. You will take a flight direct and then you will start your business there. So I think there will be a lot of losses in terms of investment and businesses.
Okay. I think I agree with Alice totally. And I want to say, we did a disservice to Kenyans. After our committee finished its work, we should have published that report. Yeah. Or written it in a way that can be all these issues we dealt with in our inquiry. We found out, for example, that the deal with KLM was lopsided in the interest of KLM, and we recommended that they should stop or discontinue that. In our attempt as a committee to go to Amsterdam and go and look at all the kind of things that were happening there, we could not go because of these cartels you are talking about. They were just prevented. When their officers came, KLM people came to see us here, they couldn't answer questions. So we agreed that we would send them the questions and give us written answers later. They didn't. But of course, we made our conclusion on the basis of the evidence we had. Secondly, as Ali said, really, the rain started beating Kenya Airways when the Mawingu project started. Unfortunately, it started under Naikuni as a chief executive officer. And when you are in such a position, you take responsibility.
Yeah.
And the board. Okay, the board was very weak, by the way, in my own estimation. So Bugwa, who was the finance director, and Naikuni more or less dominated it. Secondly, the relationship between the CEO and the financial director with KLM, we questioned. Okay. Now, and thirdly, which is very important, what then should the DCI do? The DCI should go further into what both us as a committee and Deloitte & Touche as an auditing firm have done. Deloitte & Touche, I think, took up our report as we recommended and went further to do a forensic audit. With our report and Deloitte & Touche, the DCI should now go for the fellows, as Manyara says, because it's not just Naikuni. It is those owners of the joint special purpose vehicles in Cayman Islands, the Amboselis and so on. They have all national park names and all Kenyan animal names. You see, those special purpose vehicles.
Is there one called Temple?
I can't remember. I remember. Okay, Amboseli at least. Go into that and find who are these people behind this thing. Who are the people who ate, as it were, out of this mess in Kenya Airways? And then we couldn't ourselves because we didn't have the skill and the time to do it. But now that we have done that and Deloitte has done its bit, it is now time for the DCI to go deeper into it. The last thing I want to say about Kinoti's work and what can happen to Kenya Airways once he finishes work. All of us here agree that Kenya Airways must be saved. Yeah. Okay? There are two ways of Kenya Airways, saving Kenya Airways. First, clean up the management and service provision at Kenya Airways. For example, Naikuni introduced this thing whereby they source stewards from outside. There was a company created to supply air stewards to Kenya Airways, air hostesses and hosts and so on. Yet Kenya Airways itself had its own air hosts. These ones which were supplied by this company were being paid more money than Kenya Airways want. Now, how can you have two people working on a plane upstairs when they're paid salaries differently? They could sabotage each other and the plane can come down.
Even motivation.
All these those management issues now need to be exposed by the DCI and find out why they were introduced to the detriment of the airline. And then finally say, once we do all these things, what do we recover? Okay, from the losses we made. How much can we recover to bring back to the air? Then the final question is, which we cannot avoid. The airline needs money to operate. Yeah. It needs to be recapitalized. Who is going to put in the money to recapitalize the airline? You don't expect me, who bought shares before, and I have lost the value of my shares, to begin putting money to Kenya Airways because I have very little faith whether it will go to be managed. The only entity which can put money into Kenya Airways is the majority shareholder,
but
Kenyan government.
Before they do that,
Yeah.
before we put money, we are all agreed.
Yeah.
We are in agreement that Kenya Airways must float,
Yeah.
must remain afloat. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. And I think every Kenyan will agree with that. And that it needs money, like the professor says. No doubt about that. And that this money will come from government. Again, it's okay. But we cannot put our money in Kenya Airways when the people who stole our money are enjoying that wealth.
I agree with you.
When they are having holidays in Seychelles, wherever it is.
I agree with you.
With all the assets they have bought, and in this country, we cannot do that. You see?
Yeah.
Now, about investigation, there's nothing to investigate. Diba, what unaenda kutafuta nini Kenya Airways? Talk to those guys who work there, they know everything. They know who owns everything. They know everything. There's no investigation.
But that will be here.
Wizi wa Kenya Airways ni wizi wa kawaida katika Kenya hii ambao ordinary people who work in Kenya Airways will tell you huyu aliba hii kampuni ni ya fulani. They know. You saw what happened in Masai Mara. These guys know. What are you investigating? They will tell you everything. Like those guys are the trade unionists. You know, ask them why the airline, they even have the dossier. They will tell you we are going down because of this deal, because of this deal, because of so and so. So what is it? There's nothing to investigate.
No, but
you have to follow the due process.
That is what we did. We talked to these people. I think that's what I was saying, that what Kinoti used to do, get the records of the Senate inquiry. All those people who testified and so on, their documents are there, unless somebody has now shredded them. Okay? Okay, get that, lock, stock, and barrel. And you know, we also asked Kenya to bring us some documents. Now, 1 week after we finished our inquiry, I went to the clerk's office to get access to those documents. They had all been collected and taken back to Kenya Airways. My argument was these documents should now be the property of Parliament. Yeah. These are the kind of things that Deloitte, DCI should look into. Where are the documents that the Senate committee used? Give them to us so that we can, because the evidence was already there from unions and pilots and so on. We got all that. Then go to Deloitte, because Deloitte went further than that. Give us what you have. Then all they need to do, without going to talk to those people again in Manyara, use their evidence already in the position of the Senate and of Deloitte and finish the work.
Prosecute
Right.
people.
Prosecute them.
But I think there's a bigger issue here that I need to highlight. And it really worries me because it is very consistent. This is KQ, the next time it will be Talo Oil, the next time it will be SGR. And you know, look at Kenya as a country, and allow me to be a bit philosophical above. We moved from being dependent around the issue of colonialism. Then we championed for independence. But the country is going forward, what people are doing, and Professor Nyong'o has written a lot about leapfrogging the country forward and the issues of technology transfer, is the issue of interdependence. We don't seem to get it right. And I think the rhetoric around Pan-Africanism and independence has, you know, for lack of a better word, crippled our imagination around how we can partner. So suffering from inferiority complex is a problem of Africa. And that we must say very clearly, because we seem not to know how to engage with the people we perceive to be our nemesis or superiors. Because how do you explain the issue of a simple company that had no asset called Tulo being the biggest shareholder of our oil fields? How do you explain the issue of KLM? I mean, really a country that is actually under the sea, benefiting from our, you know, and we have to fly through a very cumbersome airport called Schiphol. I mean, really.
Yeah, we should question the caliber of negotiations that actually
exactly.
happen.
But
who
also
are these people who negotiate on behalf of Kenya?
Of Kenya, yes. But also the problem there is the issue around state capture, around the issues of personal business. I am forced to say that I am now concluding, if Isaac Mwaura has got personal financial interests, it is very difficult for Isaac Mwaura to become independent public official who has the best interest of the country. In fact, I was reading today, this morning, that Mwai Kibaki says that public service is a privilege. It's not an opportunity to enhance the life of others. It's not to satisfy personal greed. So when there is a conflict around the issue of your personal business entities and ventures and the interest of the country, then it only profits you because you get the kickbacks, like from what we saw yesterday on TV, Professor Mary Walingo, who you had covered very well. She said that she fears poverty. So the greed for money has made her, despite her illustrious career,
She feared poverty?
Yes, it's there. You'll find it online. That her greatest fear is poverty. So then she was obliterating any evidence of poverty as is a character of us middle class, but in the wrong way, because that is total theft. But you see, it then introduces a question about which theft is theft? The theft where you steal literally, or the theft where you steal through policy and advantage of business? That should be left to conjecture. Because by the end of the day, the end is how much money you are going to get. We must have a cogent, I mean, it's like kusema kwa Kiswahili, ni kuiba na ujanja na ingine kuiba too literally. You know, by the end of the day, both of them are thefts. And this country, People must decide if they are getting into public service, they must make friends with poverty. I'm sorry to say this. Because by the end of the day, the problems we are facing in this great country are of ourselves. It is personal greed. And every time I travel, you know, like I was in Larry, as I said, there is no road there in Kahendo, in Matibey, in Githirioni. There is no road there. But when you look at the people, especially women, the kind of injustices they are having to go through, and it's just personal greed. It's just somebody, you know, wanting to benefit here and there. Even this whole issue about cancer, you know, people, you know, using, you know, additives just to make money. They don't care. You remember the issue of meat the other day. So I'm not lamenting, but simply what I'm trying to say is this. There must be some higher ideal around how we view ourselves if this country is to move forward. And I do not think that higher ideal is resident in people who are personal businesses who come before the interests of Kenyans.
Right, thank you. Let's just wind up on it. Of course, you saw that KQ also had made losses. This is amounting to 8.5 billion shillings, 6 months loss. And the national carrier is widening losses. Erodes Capital position to a negative of 16.18 billion shillings, but it's attributable to loss to route expansion. This is a story that actually continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. This was actually last week. Let's see, we have this particular, maybe we should wind up with what they're saying here. Do you cut the air travel cost across East Africa?
We have to.
We have to?
You know why? Across Africa in general, air travel is very expensive, because if you're flying from Nairobi to Johannesburg, you have to pay all the countries you are flying over some money, each one of them, to get there. It is even more difficult if you're flying a private craft. Just to get permission to leave Nairobi to land in Lagos is a nightmare, because you have, as a private craft, you can sit here at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport waiting for hours as each country clears you to fly over to the other side. You know what I mean? And this means money. So if we are really going to make our airlines competitive in Africa, let us first of all clear that nonsense. Free skies in Africa for African airlines, okay? These airlines coming up like Uganda, Tanzania, I don't know. I think they are going to fall very quickly, because, look, it's already competitive. We have already allowed KLM to fly to Nairobi, go to Dar es Salaam, go to Entebbe, whatever. This is a foreign airline, which is much richer than us, but it's going to all these destinations. Now, if I can fly from Amsterdam to Entebbe on KLM, Uganda Airlines is going to fly from Amsterdam to Entebbe, okay, compete with KLM. Yet when Uganda Airlines arrive in Amsterdam, they cannot go to those cities all over European Union, you know, so easily like KLM. So we are in a situation where, first of all, let's get our act together in Africa, so that if these two airlines which are now coming up are going to compete, surely they should be competing in an environment much better than Kenya Airways has been.
But what really happened to the open sky agreements that was being fronted by the AU? It seems also they didn't take advantage of the single aircraft to African air transport market.
But Debal, you know what? You will find an African air transport official being more amenable to a Muzungu from Europe and getting all access against a fellow African airline. You see, we must love ourselves as Africans. It's that basic. We must love ourselves and believe that we can make it. Because you see, part of the reason why Africa has not developed, and that's why I've told you this is part of a bigger problem. How do you explain, for example, that we are the richest continent in terms of natural resources, and yet we cannot process them? How comes a country like Switzerland, which is really a very beautiful country, is one of the countries anyone would want to live in, is the biggest manufacturer of chocolate. Yet, you know, a country like, where we produce in Africa, they don't. I mean, Cote d'Ivoire, another country, they can't produce. So, what I'm trying to say in short is, can we also be honest about ourselves? What is the role of these regional economic communities like East Africa? You know, the tensions around that with SADC, ECOWAS. I mean, what value are they bringing when we have negotiations Like recently when we had a tiff about Tanzania and the Jaguar is now very popular in Dar es Salaam, I was there. Who benefits from when people are negotiating? Is it private companies? Is it public entities? What is the role, for example, the BAL, of public-owned companies in terms of advancing the business interests? You know, what are we doing in terms of giving tax rebates? You see, right now KRA is very busy, you know, telling everybody that they need to pay. But are they doing the same thing to MNCs, multinationals? I mean, if you look at, for example, the issue of Jetlink, which was a very good airline, it just went down, you know, because it couldn't compete with KQ because of the interest of KLM and what have you. So we have to look at the issue more clearly, because the only way Africa is going to develop is doing business with itself. Look at AU. Let me just, because you asked the question about AU. In the AU, people are told to give 0.2% of their exports to finance the capital of AU. But when you go there, you find even a $200 million structure called the African Union is financed by China, and out there they've written in red, China aid. You see? 54 African countries could not give $3 to $4 million to finance their own headquarters. And we call ourselves independent.
Right.
Then how will we not be amenable to whatever overtures that are coming from China? And yet China itself confesses that since they joined the WTO, their trade has gone up. What have we benefited from? How do we negotiate internationally? If you look at the Caribbean countries, the BAL, they have actually specialized on banana. For them, and they only go with that simple item. But for us, we negotiate on anything and everything, and we're experts of anything and anything. And we do not have interests. We do not have business interests to make sure that money percolates down to the pockets of the people of our countries.
So it seems we are actually always avoiding, and I'm trying to lift here a certain nation, maybe also to comment on it briefly before we wind up also with the Division of Revenue bill. This was on Sunday, and this was a headlining story as well. Joho in a new lucrative cargo deal. Agency is bound to pressure after attempts to block plan. Governor's family farm now poised to take over strategic Nairobi SGR goods facility built using public funds as it eyes more railway land nearby in sweet parks. That raises question. Maybe Manyora can comment on this. This is a change of tune. As far as SGR is concerned, you've been also very vocal as far as SGR is concerned as well. I don't know if you're privy to this particular information.
My view about SGR was simple, that it was a bad venture. Even if it was a good thing, the state of the economy and where we are, that money will do better work. But even as a project, it was a fraud, like I've said before. It was meant for people to eat. So this is just a continuation of the same, if it is true. I have not followed the story, but if it is true, then it's just the same thing, the same script. I wanted just half a second to respond to what Maura said. What seems to be a problem with Africa and so on and so forth. I think it is a Nyong'o who would have, if he was given time, would explain to you. What drives nations are two things. One is a vision and energy. We are visionless as people. We don't have leaders who have a vision. And the little energy that is available, national energy, is spent on the people making money for themselves. You see, so that laziness is the product. It now produces what you see. You know, lazy thinking, lazy working, everything is lazy. No energy directed at the national development.
I like that.
Which is a tragedy, because Nyong'o is the one who would have told about what does independence mean to an African in 1960, 63, and so on and so forth. You know?
All right. Thank you.
It's difficult.
Let's hear from Okongo Mogini briefly.
Talk about.
Of course, on the skies, we have problems. It seems also on the railway as well. There's trouble as well. Just briefly. And then we comment also on the Division of Revenue. 18-member committee and 18-member mediation team has not been able to break this particular Gordian knot. Why? Until now. But on the railway bit.
I mean, you know, Dibal, we spoke about railway here.
Yeah.
I think we were in this panel some time back, and we told, we told you that the way that thing was planned, it would never break even. It would not, you not have returns for your money. And we started by looking at the cost. And I think somebody this morning has just told us that there are people in government whose business is to plan for projects where they will reap big. And I think that's what happened on the railway network. You look at the cost, and we have our neighbor here in Ethiopia. We compared the price, we compared the infrastructure. Actually, theirs is superior. It's covering a longer area, but it's like what we are spending is 2 times what the Ethiopians are spending. How are you going to make a profitable venture with that kind of thing? And then how do you bring a railroad from Mombasa and terminate it in Naivasha, in a landlocked city, and you're not serving any of your neighbors, while our friends in Ethiopia are serving, the other neighboring countries? You must collect cargo from Mombasa and hand it over to the other market in Tanzania, Uganda, or Congo. But just to say that you want to bring all this to Naivasha, and then my good friend Joe can collect it from there and hand it over to the owners for onward transmission to Uganda or Tanzania. I think we have a country that is extremely unserious. That's all I can say. But let me comment on the other issue.
Division of revenue?
The division of revenue. Truth be said, we have not made headways. We were to have a meeting last week. That did not take place.
It didn't take place because senators didn't appear.
I mean, of course, that's a fact. I will not deny. That's a fact. But you can see...
Why did you appear, all of you appear? At least out of 9 senators, only 3
yeah,
appeared.
Because...
Were you amongst those who appeared?
Dibali, well, I was there, but... Dibali,
Isaac, were you in that appearance as well? Amongst the 3? Where were you?
He's
He's not a member. Isaac is not a member. Oh, I forgot he's not a member.
Sorry. I'm involved in something else with them.
Okay.
You should ask my neighbor here.
Yes.
But I'm not a member.
She's not a member.
But what I wanted to say, Dibali, is that there are concerns also from senators, and we are telling our colleagues from the National Assembly, if we are going for a mediation, let's be serious. We can't go for a mediation where people are coming there to engage in shouting matches. We want this to be a serious... We don't know. Me, I've never been to the National Assembly. I don't know whether that's how people shout there. But, you see, a majority leader comes to a meeting, a serious mediation meeting, and then all he can do is to just engage in shouting. So I think we said we withdraw, we let them cool down. When they are serious, when they now want to be serious leaders who can sit on a table to engage in a discussion, then we will go back and sit with
the level of maturity of the Senate.
Yes. I mean, now you can see they have retreated to villages. You will see in the nation today. Now they have gone to villages in Busia, telling people in villages that you see, let your governors take what they have been given. What kind of leadership are we seeing from the National Assembly? This thing is supposed to be solved by that 9-committee team. But what you see from the National Assembly is people who come there, they don't even understand. It is a tragedy. They don't even understand the constitutional framework we're working under. One of them was saying, you see, we are being generous, we are giving you. You are not giving anybody. I mean, read Article 218. This is money that has been collected. Even me, I am a taxpayer. My money is part of the kitty that is there that has been collected as tax. So when we sit down, we are trying to appreciate that under Article 6, we have 2 levels of government. We sit down. Dibal, anytime you want to tell them, let's put these issues on the table, we look at the budget. They said, don't touch CDF. We have increased from 33 billion to 41 billion. Now, how do you engage in a discussion with that kind of team, really?
Alice, what is happening in the National Assembly? You need to protect your own.
I think, Dibal, I don't know why we keep on coming back to this debate. Because I'm sure it is tiring even Kenyans. Kenyans want the division of revenue bill, I think, will not be resolved by the thinking of people like even Okongo. And I have said here before, he becomes so emotional about these things. He becomes very emotional. And even while he says that maybe there is shouting match from Parliament, because really, there must be another reason other than that Senate and National Assembly members who are in that committee cannot agree. I have a feeling that there is another reason. And that other reason is the one that is stopping this issue, an agreement on this particular matter. One of those reasons is that there is not the country doesn't have money. Actually, the country is bordering now to bankruptcy.
Why did they get money to increase CDF from 33 to 41?
You know, books.
The same financial
books
year.
are different from figures, and money, actual cash. But anyway, on a very serious note, I think if you don't want to listen to the question of how we reached there, and that there has been very express, almost pain. His Excellency has been almost at pain, like telling even Parliament, you go and increase that money and then look for it yourselves. You know, the President has alluded to the fact that if the National Assembly makes an attempt to change those figures, they must either sacrifice their CDF, and you can hear these people are also looking at CDF, or they look for money from,
Thank you.
They go and print money. You see now, if it has gone down to us to print money,
Thank you.
I think we need to just agree that there is.
And so the governors are threatening to cripple the operations in the counties.
I watched the so-called mediation, and I was a little shocked. How can intelligent people, they are sitting, actually it's a contest, very adversarial.
Correct.
One side is this side, the other one there, and there's a big space in between, and they're using even a microphone, I think. They were shouting at each other. First of all, how do you put nine people? A mediation is something you need like 3 people, 6 people at most.
It's a bloated team.
Not 18. But you see, the tragedy here is this, the bar. We are talking about robbers. There's no honor among thieves. At the end of the day, pirates will always slit each other's throat over the loot. Robbers will always fight over what they have stolen. We have a society, a country in which theft is the thing. So, because you cannot understand how Senate and the National Assembly will be fighting over 10, 15 billion shillings in a budget of 3 trillion. It doesn't make sense. There is so much money in the budget that you can get and give to counties. There's so much padding. You don't even need to be an expert at the bar. You just go through the budget and you'll see what is this money here for, what is this for. You even give institutions like NYS who don't have even the capacity to use that money. The money is there. You see what I'm talking about? So there's so much money you can remove where it is put wrongly, but it's been put there for people to follow and eat.
Thank you.
Why are we fighting over 15 billion shillings? Why?
Just issues of allocations.
19 billion shillings.
Right, thank you. Let's just get our headline thoughts briefly. Nyong'o, so will you make good of the threats as governors to cripple operations within the counties? Briefly, 10 seconds.
The question itself is wrong. It's not us who are crippling the counties. It's us who are saying if the money doesn't come, the counties will be crippled. Let's be quite clear about the transitive verb we're using.
Right.
It is not us crippling the countries. The countries being starved and crippled because the money to deliver services is not there, or even to pay salaries. We saw it when the strike was there. Governors had to go to the banks and let the banks lend us money to pay these people. They can't do it twice. So there should be clear understanding about that. The second thing I want to say is that I just want to
being chased out, yes.
Yeah, you're being chased out.
Yeah, I'm being chased out.
But I think that, to me, the SGR as a project was a good idea. The only wrong thing about it is overpriced for reasons that Manyara has already said. Secondly, we should have improved on the technology. Rather than using diesel trains, diesel engines, which cost a lot, we should have used electricity. At that point in time, we agreed that we didn't have enough electrical power. But now we are saying that we are producing more power than we need. So there's something wrong somewhere. We should have sorted out when we're doing it, like the Europeans did.
Thank you, Prof. Let's hear from Isaac. 10 seconds, please. 10 seconds.
If a mother comes home and finds 2 children having dipped their hands in a sugar dish, but one of them is her child, the other one is a neighbor's, and then she starts complaining that the one who has eaten the sugar is the one from the neighbors, it's unfair. National government should not think that county governments are foreign and alien to this country. And I think the issue of corruption is shared by both levels. You cannot have this grandstanding. Kenyans are tired. In fact, this conversation, the ball, sounds like a broken record. You know the way we used to use a pen to round the tape.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about
my closing remark is a story I was told by workers on the Ngong Road project, road construction.
I hope you're not relating the story now. It's going to be long. 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Yes.
And I'm saying it's related to SGR and all this borrowing. I've been wondering who are these people who do manual work, and they are not quite Africans. Then these people told me these people are from Sri Lanka. They are even driving small things and even cleaning roads. And you know what these people are telling me? It may not be true, but this is what they were saying. These guys have been brought here. This is a Japanese project, but they have been brought here so that their salary, from their salary, money is deducted to pay loan Sri Lanka owes the Chinese. Something like that. I found it may not be true, but look at the ridiculous levels we are getting to through this SGR and borrowing that. You know?
Thank you. Okongo Mogini.
This headline gives me hope that you can never steal public funds and get away with it. It will catch up with you. This is the former president of Sudan.
In a cage.
In a cage. Yeah. This gives me hope this morning.
Thank you.
Yes.
Alice, finally, briefly.
I think the country has a lot of goodwill from the public to deal with the corruption and the issues that are emerging, that are crippling the nation. We do have enough money if we take care of what we make.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our panelists. We appreciate your cogent discussion this year. This morning regarding, of course, Division of Revenue and what is happening with KQ as well. A lot of reactions I can see also on social media because it's really stuff of time. I can't read all of this. But thank you nonetheless for joining the show with me. I really do appreciate it. My name is Devalada.